The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy and fate. The Jedi believed it brought balance. The Sith knew it granted power. But what happens when something arrives that doesn't simply resist the Force, but consumes the very darkness the Sith have cultivated? What happens when a being forged in literal hell crashes into a galaxy where evil wears the mask of order? The rift opened without warning. Near Mustafar's orbit, where the lava planet churned with rage beneath its blackened surface, space itself tore open. Not a hyperspace jump, not a wormhole. Reality simply split apart like flesh beneath a blade, bleeding crimson energy into the void. Imperial sensor stations detected the anomaly 3 seconds before their instruments overloaded and died. The tear measured 2 kilometers across, crackling with energies that registered on no known spectrum, something ancient, wrathful, and utterly alien to this galaxy. Through the wound in space, a figure emerged. He fell through the rift's closing maw, armor scorched and pitted from battles beyond counting. The Praetor's suit, olive green plating over reinforced infrastructure, sparked with residual energy as he tumbled through the vacuum. His visor, a cold bronze shield hiding whatever remained of the man beneath, reflected Mustafar's hellish glow. Behind him, the rift sealed with a sound like screaming metal, and then there was only silence. The Doomslayer hung motionless in space for exactly 4 seconds. His suit's systems recalibrated, analyzing this new universe's physical laws, scanning for atmospheric composition, gravitational constants, electromagnetic frequencies. The HUD inside his helmet painted trajectories, threat assessments, ammunition counts. His Praetor suit had sustained him through the void between dimensions. It would sustain him here. Below, Mustafar beckoned. The Slayer's thrusters ignited, compact fusion jets built into his armor's architecture, and he descended toward the planet's surface like a meteor wrapped in green fire. The heat didn't touch him. The Praetor's suit had been forged in the fires of hell itself, blessed by an ancient order of night sentinels and reinforced with argent energy that made its wearer nearly indestructible. Atmospheric entry was nothing compared to the Titan demons he'd killed with his bare hands. He crashed into Mustafar's northern continent, where obsidian cliffs met rivers of molten rock. The impact crater measured 30 meters across. Steam hissed where superheated armor met volcanic stone. The Slayer rose from the smoking ruin, servo motors whining as his armor systems assessed damage. Negligible. His right hand closed around the grip of his super shotgun, magnetic clamps releasing the weapon from his back. The double barrels gleamed in Mustafar's red light. That's when he felt it. Not with his skin. The Slayer was beyond such simple sensation. He felt it in his bones, in the ancient rage that had sustained him through eons of war. A pressure against his mind, a creeping wrongness that reminded him of hell's corruption. The dark side saturated this world, thick and cloying, seeping from the planet's very bedrock. Mustafar wasn't just a lava world. It was a wound in reality, a place where something dark had left its mark. The Slayer's targeting system swept the landscape. Structures dotted the cliffs, Imperial facilities, his HUD translated from captured energy signatures. But there, carved into the mountainside 3 kilometers south, was something else. Something that pulsed with the same corrupted energy he'd spent eternity destroying. A Sith temple. His hands tightened on the shotgun. The Praetor suit's argent energy reserves thrummed in response to his rising fury. He'd been hunting demons through a collapsing hell portal when reality broke and spat him here. He didn't know this galaxy, didn't know its people, its wars, its empires. But he knew corruption when he felt it, knew the stench of evil that justified itself with order. And he knew what he did to evil. The Slayer began walking toward the temple, his armored boots crunching across the volcanic glass. His motion tracker pinged, life signs ahead, dozens of them, organized in military formations. The energy signatures were wrong, though. Not human, not demon, something in between. His HUD classified them as potential hostiles and marked optimal firing solutions. Above, in orbit, an Imperial Star Destroyer's sensors finally locked onto the anomaly. The bridge crew scrambled, running analysis on the armored figure. No identification codes, no ship signature, no hyperspace trail. Just a single humanoid walking across Mustafar's surface toward the Emperor's personal fortress ruins. Captain Jared of the ISD Subjugator made the call. Scramble a TIE squadron. Inquisitors are stationed planetside. Alert them immediately. Unknown hostile approaching Vader's castle coordinates. The Doomslayer didn't look up as the TIE fighters screamed overhead. Didn't acknowledge the warning shots that vaporized rock formations around him. His eyes, what remained of them behind the visor, stayed locked on the temple ahead, on the darkness that pulsed within it like a beating heart. He'd killed the spider mastermind, the cyber demon, the icon of sin itself. He'd torn through hell's infinite armies and made demons whisper his name in terror. This galaxy thought it knew darkness. It was about to learn the difference between the dark and the Slayer who walked through it. Unburning. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The first Inquisitor landed 50 meters ahead, black robes billowing in the superheated wind. Her double-bladed lightsaber ignited with a crimson hiss, spinning in the aggressive Jarkai style. Behind her, 4 more Inquisitors descended from their TIE advanced fighters, encircling the Slayer with predatory confidence. The 5th brother stepped forward, his voice amplified through his respirator mask. Unknown entity. You have trespassed on Imperial territory. Submit to interrogation or be destroyed. The Doomslayer's response was to raise his super shotgun. And then he started running. The 5th brother barely had time to raise his lightsaber before the Slayer closed the distance. 50 meters crossed in 4 seconds, faster than any human should move in full armor. The Force screamed warning, but instinct couldn't compete with velocity. The super shotgun roared. Both barrels discharged simultaneously, unleashing a storm of superheated plasma pellets that punched through the 5th brother's lightsaber guard. The red blade deflected some. Plasma met plasma in a shower of sparks, but not enough. The kinetic impact alone sent the Inquisitor flying backward, his chest plate shattered, respirator cracked and hissing. He hit volcanic rock hard enough to fracture the obsidian beneath him. The other 4 Inquisitors moved as one, their training kicking in. The 7th sister launched forward with Force-enhanced speed. Her blade aimed for the Slayer's exposed neck joint. The 9th sister, massive and brutal, came from the right with an overhead strike designed to cleave him in half. The 6th brother and 10th brother flanked left, coordinating their assault with practiced precision. The Doomslayer's combat computer painted their trajectories in real time. His left hand snapped to his equipment launcher, firing a micro-grenade that detonated at the 7th sister's feet. The explosion caught her mid-leap, sending her tumbling through superheated air. His right hand dropped the spent shotgun, magnetic clamps auto-retrieved it to his back, and drew the heavy cannon in one fluid motion. The weapon spun up with a mechanical whine. Micro-missiles launched in a spiral pattern, tracking the 9th sister's mass. She tried to deflect with the Force, pushing against the projectiles, but these weren't blaster bolts. They were physical ordnance traveling at hypersonic velocity. The first 3 missiles detonated against her force barrier, overloading it. The 4th hit her square in the chest, detonating on impact. The 9th sister's scream was cut short as she crashed into a lava flow. The molten rock consumed her, and her presence in the Force simply ended. The 6th and 10th brothers froze for half a heartbeat, long enough to witness their sister's death, too short to process it. The Slayer didn't give them the second heartbeat. He was already moving, closing the gap with the 6th brother. His left hand shot out, servo-assisted strength grabbing the Inquisitor's wrist mid-swing. The lightsaber blade sizzled centimeters from the Slayer's helmet. Then he squeezed. The 6th brother's wrist shattered, bones pulverized. The lightsaber fell from nerveless fingers. The Inquisitor's mouth opened in a scream that became a gurgle as the Slayer's right hand seized his throat and lifted him off the ground. For one moment, they were eye to visor, the Inquisitor staring into that bronze faceplate, seeing nothing but his own reflection. The Doomslayer triggered a glory kill. His hand tore through the Inquisitor's chest with brutal efficiency, ripping out something vital in a spray of gore. But this time, something else happened. The 6th brother's life force, his connection to the Force itself, was ripped away with the killing blow. Not absorbed naturally, but forcefully drained, pulled into the Slayer's Praetor suit, where Argent energy reserves thrummed hungrily. The sensation made the Slayer pause for a fraction of a second. The energy tasted wrong. Not demonic Argent, but similar. Corrupted, dark, willing. The Praetor suit's systems processed it, converted it, added it to his reserves. His HUD showed ammunition replenishment, armor repair nanites activating, shields regenerating. The dark side could feed him. The 10th brother watched his comrade's corpse hit the ground, watched the armored demon turn toward him with fresh energy crackling across green plating. The Inquisitor did what any creature does when confronted with an apex predator. He ran. Force speed carried him across volcanic terrain, pushing his body beyond normal limits. Behind him, he heard the screaming whine of a chainsaw revving. The Doomslayer's chainsaw materialized from his equipment loadout, a brutal instrument of hell-forged steel and impossibly sharp teeth. He surged forward, boots hammering obsidian, closing distance with mechanical precision. The 10th brother glanced back, saw death gaining, and made a desperate choice. He spun, both hands extended, and unleashed Force lightning. Blue-white energy arced across the gap, crackling against the Slayer's Praetor suit. The armor's shielding flared, absorbing the initial impact, but the sustained assault began eating through layers. Electricity crawled across green plating, seeking vulnerable joints, power conduits, the man beneath. The Slayer didn't stop running. He raised his left arm, and the equipment launcher cycled to flame belch mode, a hell-tech weapon that bathed targets in sticky incendiary gel. The gout of flame crossed paths with the Force lightning. For a moment, fire and electricity met in midair, creating a localized plasma storm. Then the flames reached to the 10th brother. The Inquisitor's concentration broke. The lightning died. He staggered backward, robes igniting, trying to use the Force to smother the alchemical fire that didn't behave like normal flame. It clung to him, burning hotter with each second, feeding on his panic. The chainsaw took him mid-scream. The Slayer's blade carved through the 10th brother from shoulder to hip, the weapon's teeth designed to tear through demonic flesh and armor alike. An Inquisitor's Force-enhanced body proved only marginally more resilient. The kill triggered another absorption, more dark energy flooding into the Praetor suit, more ammunition materializing in his weapons reserves. The 7th sister had recovered from the grenade blast. She crouched behind a rock formation, breathing hard, watching the carnage. 3 Inquisitors dead, in under 60 seconds. The fifth brother wasn't moving, probably dead or dying. And this thing was draining their connection to the Force like some kind of Sith technique she'd never encountered. She reached for her comlink. All Imperial forces, priority alert. Unknown Force-sensitive hostile has engaged Inquisitorious assets on Mustafar. Multiple casualties. Subject demonstrates. The comlink exploded in her hand. The plasma rifle bolt had been perfectly aimed, not at her, but at the communication device. She spun to see the Slayer standing 50 meters away, the rifle's barrel glowing cherry red. He'd crossed that distance silently while she was distracted, repositioning with tactical precision. The seventh sister ignited both ends of her lightsaber and dropped into a defensive stance. "What are you?" Her voice was steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. "You're not Jedi, not Sith. What kind of monster?" The Slayer holstered his plasma rifle and drew the crucible. The weapon activated with a sound like tearing reality, a blade of pure red energy extending from an ancient hilt, shaped like the Argent technology that powered Hell's machinery. It resembled a lightsaber, but the energy signature was wrong, older, angrier. The blade hummed with a frequency that made the seventh sister's lightsaber flicker and spark in proximity. She understood then. This wasn't a duel. This was an execution. The seventh sister attacked first, launching a flurry of strikes designed to overwhelm, high, low, spinning slashes that utilized her lightsaber's double-bladed advantage. The Slayer met her blade with the crucible, and where they connected, her lightsaber screamed. The energy interaction was wrong, destabilizing, as if the crucible was designed to unmake energy constructs. He fought with no technique she recognized. No Form 1 through 7, no Jarkai, no Juyo aggression. Just brutal efficiency. Blocks that transitioned to grabs, parries that became throws, deflections that positioned her exactly where he wanted her. The seventh sister's lightsaber went flying from a precisely timed wrist strike. Before she could recall it with the Force, the Slayer's armored fist connected with her abdomen. The impact lifted her off her feet, organs rupturing from the servo-assisted blow. She hit the ground hard, coughing blood through her mask. The Slayer stood over her, crucible raised. The blade's red glow painted her white mask crimson. "Wait," she gasped. "You're making a mistake. The Empire controls this galaxy. Palpatine will send everything to destroy you. Vader will..." The crucible descended. The seventh sister's presence in the Force extinguished, and the Slayer absorbed what remained. His Hadi showed his Argent reserves at maximum capacity, all weapons fully loaded, armor at peak integrity. The dark energy these Inquisitors carried was potent, stronger than lesser demons, weaker than Hell Knights, but numerous enough to sustain him. He deactivated the crucible and turned toward the Sith temple, still pulsing with that familiar corruption. Behind him, 5 corpses cooling on volcanic rock. Above, TIE fighters still circling but maintaining distance, their pilots too terrified to engage after watching the Inquisitors fall. The Doomslayer had only one thought, encoded in raw determination rather than words. More. The Imperial Star Destroyer Subjugator hung in high orbit, its bridge crew watching sensor data with mounting dread. Captain Jared stared at the tactical display, showing 5 flat-lined biosigns where the Inquisitors had been. The armored intruder's marker continued moving toward Vader's castle ruins, steady, unwavering, inevitable. "Sir, should we deploy ground forces?" his tactical officer asked. Jared's hand hovered over the communication panel. Standard protocol demanded immediate troop deployment. but standard protocol assumed enemies that could be overwhelmed with numbers. The footage from the TIE fighter gun cameras told a different story, something that killed Force users like they were nothing. "Prep the orbital bombardment batteries," Jared said quietly, "but do not fire without direct authorization. Contact Coruscant. Priority Alpha transmission, and alert Lord Vader immediately." In the depths of his meditation chamber aboard the superstar destroyer Executor, currently stationed near the Outer Rim, Darth Vader felt the disturbance in the Force. Not a ripple, a void. 5 lights extinguished in rapid succession, their darkness consumed by something that wasn't death, something that drank the shadows themselves. His eyes opened behind the mask. "Lord Vader," his communications officer's voice crackled through the chamber's speakers. "Priority transmission from Mustafar. The Inquisitorius—" "I know," Vader interrupted, his respirator punctuating each word. "Prepare my shuttle. I will handle this personally." The Doomslayer reached the Sith temple as Mustafar's twin suns began their descent, painting the sky in shades of blood and ash. The structure had been carved directly into the mountainside. Black stone shaped by dark rituals, inscribed with symbols that predated the Empire. This had been a place of power long before Vader claimed Mustafar as his fortress world. The entrance yawned open like a wound, steps descending into darkness that even Mustafar's volcanic glow couldn't penetrate. The Slayer's helmet automatically switched to night vision, painting the world in green-tinted clarity. He saw the architecture then. Pillars adorned with Sith hieroglyphs, walls carved with scenes of conquest and suffering, chambers designed to channel and amplify the dark side. It reminded him of the Necroval, Hell's soul factories where demons processed human suffering into argent energy. His targeting system swept the interior. No immediate hostiles, but the temple wasn't empty. He could feel it now, that pressure against his mind intensifying with each step deeper. The dark side permeated these stones, centuries of corruption soaked into the very molecular structure. It whispered promises of power, tried to burrow into his thoughts, seeking purchase in rage or fear or ambition. The Slayer's rage wasn't the kind the dark side could use. It was pure, focused, directed. A weapon he'd sharpened over eons. The whispers slid off his mind like water off heated armor. He descended 3 levels, following the strongest concentration of dark energy. The temple opened into a central chamber where Sith had once meditated, drawing power from Mustafar's geological fury. At the room's center stood a holocron, a pyramidal device hovering above a pedestal, its surface crawling with red circuitry patterns. The holocron activated as he approached, projecting a ghostly figure, a Sith Lord long dead, preserved as a teaching imprint. The hologram wore ancient armor, its face hidden behind a mask that resembled a skull. At last, a worthy apprentice approaches. The holocron's voice echoed through the chamber. "I am Darth Revan, and I offer knowledge that could make you a god among—" The Slayer's fist crushed the holocron mid-sentence. The device shattered, its fragments clattering across stone floor. The hologram flickered once and died. But when the Slayer opened his fist, something remained. A kyber crystal, blood red and pulsing with concentrated dark side energy. His HUD analyzed it. Synthetic construction, force reactive, containing massive power reserves, and it tasted like argent. The Slayer's Praetor's suit could absorb argent energy from any source, demon corpses, hell energy conduits, corrupted power cores. The kyber crystal's signature was different but compatible. He closed his fist around it, and the crystal shattered. red light exploded outward, drawn into the armor's energy conversion systems. His HUD flashed. Argent reserves exceeded maximum capacity. The excess energy had to go somewhere. The Slayer's body couldn't contain it. The Praetor's suit's limiters prevented overload by venting surplus power. But here, now, the energy found another outlet. It lashed out, following the temple's architectural design, racing along the carved channels meant to amplify dark side power. The entire temple began to shake. Centuries of accumulated corruption ignited all at once. The dark side energy reacting violently with the absorbed crystal's power. Stone cracked, pillars groaned. The Sith hieroglyphs blazed with light before crumbling to dust. The temple wasn't just collapsing. It was being purged, every molecule of dark side influence burning away, like infection exposed to flame. The Slayer walked back toward the entrance as the structure came apart around him. Debris bounced off his armor. A falling pillar crushed the spot he'd occupied a second earlier. His combat computer painted optimal exit vectors, adjusting in real time as new obstacles appeared. He emerged into Mustafar's twilight as the temple imploded behind him, collapsing into its own foundation in a roar of pulverized stone. The dark side nexus that had poisoned this mountain for centuries simply ceased. The wound in the force cauterized, sealed, gone. Above, Captain Jared watched his sensors go haywire. What just happened? Sir, the energy readings from the temple they're gone. Not dormant, gone. Like someone flipped a switch and turned off. I can see that, Lieutenant, Jared snapped. How did he do that? What kind of weapon? Multiple hyperspace signatures incoming, the sensor officer shouted. Credentials identify as Inquisitorious reinforcements, 4 TIE advanced fighters and... Sir, it's a Lambda-class shuttle. Imperial priority codes. Jared felt his stomach drop. Those codes meant one thing. The shuttle descended through Mustafar's atmosphere with fighter escort, landing on the same plateau where the Inquisitors had died. The boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics, and Darth Vader emerged into the volcanic landscape. His cape billowed in the superheated wind. His breathing echoed across the obsidian expanse. He surveyed the scene with methodical precision. 5 corpses, 3 badly mutilated. The 5th brother still clung to life, barely. Vader could sense his fading presence. The temple, once a monument to Sith power, reduced to rubble. And there, standing amid the destruction, was the source of the disturbance. The Doomslayer turned to face him, super shotgun in hand. For a long moment, the two figures regarded each other across 50 meters of scorched stone. Vader's respirator provided the only sound beyond the distant rumble of lava flows. His senses in the Force probed the armored figure, trying to understand what he was facing. Nothing. Not emptiness like a void in the Force. Utter absence, as if the being before him existed outside the Force's influence entirely. No fear to manipulate, no anger to channel, no connection to seize and exploit, just a presence defined entirely by purpose. You have destroyed Imperial property. Vader's voice carried across the distance, modulated by his masked speakers. Killed servants of the Emperor, and desecrated a temple of the dark side. He ignited his lightsaber, the crimson blade humming to life. You will answer for these crimes. The Slayer's response was to load 2 shells into his super shotgun with practiced efficiency. The breech snapped closed with a metallic click. His meaning was clear. He'd killed 5 already. 1 more made no difference. Vader's fist clenched. The Force obeyed, reaching out to crush this insolent warrior, to seize his armor and crumple it like paper. the telekinetic pressure descended, enough force to compact a speeder into a cube of metal. The Slayer stood unmoved. The force slid off his armor like it wasn't there, unable to find purchase, unable to affect him. The Praetor's suit's unholy construction rendered him immune to the kind of metaphysical manipulation the Force provided. For the first time in years, Darth Vader felt something close to surprise. "Fascinating," he said, his tone shifting to something approaching respect. "You are different. Not Jedi, not Sith, something else entirely." He began walking forward, lightsaber raised. "Show me what you are capable of, warrior. Show me if you're worthy of the Dark Lord's attention." The Doomslayer started running to meet him. Both barrels of the super shotgun spoke in unison, and the Battle of Mustafar's second act began. The shotgun blast should have been the end of it. At point-blank range, the plasma pellets carried enough kinetic force to punch through reinforced Dura steel. Against flesh and cybernetics, even force-enhanced, it should have been devastating. Vader's lightsaber became a crimson blur. The Dark Lord's blade moved with inhuman precision, deflecting pellets in a shower of sparks. Some ricocheted into volcanic rock, vaporizing stone. Others dissipated harmlessly into the air. But the sheer kinetic impact drove Vader backward, boots skidding across obsidian as he absorbed the momentum through the Force. The Slayer didn't give him time to recover. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, dropping the shotgun and drawing the crucible in one fluid motion. The ancient blade ignited, red energy screaming against Vader's lightsaber as they met. The collision sent a shockwave across the plateau. Energy crackled where the blades connected. Two different technologies, two different philosophies of destruction, meeting in violent equilibrium. The crucible's hell-forged power versus the Kyber crystal's force-channeled plasma. Neither gave ground. Vader pushed, channeling the dark side through his cybernetic limbs, amplifying his strength beyond human limits. The Slayer's armor responded with servo-assisted power that had been designed to fight Titan demons. The stalemate held for 3 seconds before Vader disengaged, spinning away with Gemso's aggressive efficiency. "You wield a weapon of darkness," Vader observed, circling. "Yet, you destroyed a Sith temple, killed the Inquisitors who served the Emperor." His respirator punctuated each sentence. "What is your purpose here?" The Slayer's answer was to holster the crucible and draw his ballista, a shoulder-mounted energy weapon that charged with a building whine. The burst of concentrated plasma caught Vader mid-step, forcing him to raise his lightsaber in a defensive guard. The bolt detonated against the blade, the explosion driving him back another meter. TIE fighter pilots watching from above saw their lord stagger. Impossible. Vader was death incarnate, the Emperor's fist, the man who'd purged the Jedi Temple single-handedly. Nothing made Vader retreat. The Slayer advanced, switching weapons with practiced efficiency. The heavy cannon materialized, micro-missiles launching in a spiral pattern. Vader extended his left hand, catching 3 missiles with the Force and redirecting them skyward. The 4th got through, detonating against his chest plate. The explosion scorched his armor, cracked the life support housing, sent warning indicators flashing across his internal HUD. Pain. Real, physical pain. Something Vader had learned to weaponize long ago. He drew it in, let it fuel his connection to the dark side. Felt power surge through his damaged body. His right hand extended, and Force lightning erupted from his fingertips. The Slayer's energy shield deployed automatically, absorbing the initial assault. Blue electricity crawled across a shimmering barrier of hard light, dissipating harmlessly. But Vader didn't stop. He poured more power into the attack, drawing from Mustafar's dark side nexus. or what remained of it after the temple's destruction. The shield flickered, overloaded, collapsed. Lightning struck the Praetor's suit directly, finding gaps in the armor plating, burning into servo motors and power conduits. The Slayer's HUD flashed damage warnings. His shields were down, armor integrity at 83%. The electricity sought the man beneath the armor, trying to cook him inside his own suit. The Doomslayer triggered his flame belch. Incendiary gels sprayed across the gap, igniting mid-flight. The wall of flame disrupted Vader's concentration, forcing him to cut the lightning and dodge. But the Slayer wasn't trying to hit him. He was buying time. The flames created a screen, and behind it, the Slayer switched to his most devastating weapon, the BFG 9000. Vader sensed the power spike too late. Through the flames stepped the Slayer, shoulder-mounted cannon charged to maximum capacity. The weapon's barrel glowed green with barely contained argent energy, a single shot capable of vaporizing everything in a 15-meter radius. "Impressive," Vader said, genuinely meaning it. "But raw power." The BFG fired. Vader threw everything he had into a force barrier, a solid wall of telekinetic energy shaped by desperation and dark side fury. The green orb of pure destruction met the barrier and detonated. The explosion lit up Mustafar's twilight like a miniature sun, sending shockwaves racing across the plateau. Volcanic rock vaporized. The corpses of the fallen Inquisitors disintegrated. TIE fighters overhead were thrown into uncontrolled spins. When the light cleared, Vader was on one knee, his barrier shattered, cape smoldering, armor cracked in a dozen places. His breathing came harder now, respirator working overtime to keep his ruined lungs functional. But he was alive. The Slayer's BFG clicked empty. The weapon required time to recharge, a fatal weakness in sustained combat. He dropped it, letting it magnetically clamp to his back, and drew his super shotgun again. 2 shells. Vader was wounded, weakened, vulnerable. But the Dark Lord wasn't finished. Vader rose, lightsaber still ignited, and the Force answered his call with renewed fury. Not at the Slayer. The armored warrior seemed immune to direct telekinetic manipulation. But the environment wasn't. Chunks of volcanic rock tore free from the plateau, each piece the size of a speeder. Vader hurled them with precision, creating a storm of debris that forced the Slayer into a defensive posture. The Slayer's dash ability activated, allowing short-range teleportation to avoid the worst impacts. He appeared and disappeared, covering ground in impossible bursts of movement. But each dash drained his reserves, and Vader's assault was relentless. A boulder caught him mid-dash, striking his chest plate with bone-crushing force. The impact sent him flying backward, boots leaving furrows in the ground as he skidded 20 meters. His HUD showed armor integrity at 68%. Internal gyroscopes compensating for equilibrium disruption. Vader pressed his advantage, advancing with measured steps, lightsaber held in the gem-so-ready position. "You are strong," he acknowledged, "but strength without the Force is merely adequate." The Slayer rose to his feet, armor smoking, and did something unexpected. He reached behind his back, drawing a weapon Vader hadn't seen yet, a simple, brutal chainsaw. The blade revved to life, teeth spinning faster than the eye could follow. Then he charged. Not with superhuman speed, not with tactical precision, just raw, furious determination. The kind of assault that broke enemy morale through sheer audacity. Vader's lightsaber met the chainsaw's teeth in a screech of incompatible technologies. Sparks showered across the Slayer's visor. The chainsaw screamed, its teeth grinding against plasma contained by magnetic fields. For a moment, they stood locked, Vader's cybernetic strength enhanced by the Force versus the Slayer's Praetor suit's servo motors running at maximum output. The plateau beneath their feet cracked from the pressure. Then Vader played his final card. His left hand shot out, seizing a massive chunk of temple rubble, at least 3 tons of carved stone. He ripped it free from the collapsed structure and hurled it like a missile. The Slayer saw it coming on his motion tracker. Too close to dodge, too massive to destroy. He made a split-second decision, disengaging from Vader and pivoting to meet the new threat. His equipment launcher fired an ice bomb, experimental technology designed to freeze even Hell's flames. The grenade struck the boulder mid-flight, coating it in sub-zero gel. The frozen stone shattered on impact with the Slayer's shoulder, breaking into 1,000 harmless fragments instead of crushing him. But the diversion had cost him his offensive momentum. Vader was already repositioning, using the Force to enhance his movements, creating distance. Both warriors paused, breathing hard, Vader's respirator laboring, the Slayer's armor venting heat through emergency exhausts. They'd been fighting for less than 3 minutes, but the plateau looked like a war zone. Craters marked plasma impacts. Scorch marks traced lightsaber paths. The very ground had been torn apart by their clash. In orbit, Captain Jared watched with mounting horror. He's fighting Lord Vader to a standstill. That's impossible. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "should we fire? The orbital cannons are locked on target. We could, and risk killing Lord Vader in the blast radius?" Jared snapped. "Are you volunteering for execution?" On the plateau, Vader made a decision. This warrior was beyond his ability to defeat quickly, and his damaged life support wouldn't sustain prolonged combat. But he'd learned something valuable. This enemy could be hurt, could be overwhelmed, could be defeated, just not by one Sith Lord alone. "You have earned the Emperor's attention," Vader said, deactivating his lightsaber. "He will want to study what you are, to understand how you exist outside the Force." He began backing toward his shuttle. "We will meet again, warrior, and when we do, I will not be alone." The Slayer raised his shotgun. Vader's hand flicked out, and a wall of flame erupted between them. Not Force lightning or telekinesis, but manipulation of Mustafar's own lava flows. The molten rocks surged up from beneath the plateau, creating a temporary barrier. By the time the Slayer circled it, Vader's shuttle was already lifting off, TIE escorts forming up around it. The Doomslayer watched them retreat, shotgun still raised, every instinct screaming to pursue. But his ammunition was depleted, his armor needed repairs, and his HUD was showing something interesting, the life signs he detected earlier in the Imperial facility 3 kilometers north. Potential resources, potential threats, potential fuel for the consumption to come. He turned toward the facility and began walking. Behind him, the ruins of the Sith temple smoldered. 5 Inquisitors lay dead, and somewhere above, a Dark Lord retreated to warn his master that something new had entered the galaxy. Something that couldn't be controlled, couldn't be turned, couldn't be stopped, only consumed by one dark side stronghold at a time. The Imperial facility, designated Outpost Theta 7, had been built into Mustafar's northern cliffs to monitor Vader's fortress and maintain the planet's defensive grid. 73 personnel staffed the installation: technicians, security officers, communication specialists. They'd watched the battle between Vader and the unknown hostile through long-range sensors, seen their Lord retreat, and now watched that same hostile approach their position. Commander Vrel, a career officer who'd served since the Clone Wars, made the only logical choice. "Evacuate. All personnel to the transports. Leave nothing classified behind. Initiate base purge protocols. Sir, we have authorization to call in orbital strikes, his security chief protested. Against something that fought Vader? Vrel's voice was hollow. We leave. Now. The Doomslayer reached the facility's main entrance as the last transport lifted off, engines screaming as it clawed for altitude. His motion trackers showed the base was empty of life signs, but his tactical overlay identified power signatures consistent with automated defenses. He approached the blast doors, studying the Imperial architecture. Reinforced durasteel, mag-locked, designed to withstand siege weapons. He planted a remote detonator, stepped back, and triggered it. The explosion tore through the door's locking mechanism, sending the massive slabs crashing inward. Alarms blared throughout the facility. Automated turrets dropped from ceiling mounts, their targeting lasers painting his armor. The Slayer's combat computer identified them as E-Web heavy repeating blasters. Anti-personnel weapons, high rate of fire, moderate penetration. The turrets opened fire simultaneously. Blaster bolts converged on his position from 4 angles, red energy slamming into his Praetor suit. His shields flared, absorbing the initial barrage, then collapsed under sustained fire. Bolts began scoring his armor plating, superheating the metal, finding weak points between plates. His HUD showed damage accumulating, 72% integrity, 68, 63. The Slayer dashed forward, teleporting through the kill zone. He appeared behind the first turret, grabbed its barrel with both hands, and ripped it from its mount. Sparks showered as power conduits tore. He swung the turret like a club, smashing it into the second emplacement. Both devices exploded in a shower of components and plasma discharge. The remaining 2 turrets swiveled to track him, but he was already moving. His equipment launcher fired an ice bomb that flash froze the 3rd turret's servos. A single punch shattered the frozen mechanism into pieces. The 4th turret managed 3 more shots before his plasma rifle reduced it to molten slag. Silence fell, broken only by the facility's emergency lighting and the distant hum of power generators. The Slayer moved deeper into the complex, following signs that his HUD translated from Imperial Basic. Armory. His ammunition reserves were critically low, 37 shotgun shells, 64 plasma cells, no BFG charges, chainsaw fuel depleted. The Praetor suit could synthesize some ammunition from absorbed Argent energy, but he needed raw materials. The armory doors had been left open in the evacuation. Inside, row upon row of Imperial weapons. E-11 blaster rifles, DL-44 heavy blaster pistols, thermal detonators, concussion grenades. The Slayer's armor analyzed the technology, running compatibility assessments. The blasters were energy weapons, compact plasma generators powered by Tibana gas cartridges. Different mechanism than his own weapons, but the underlying principle was compatible. His Praetor suit's fabrication systems could potentially adapt them. He grabbed an E-11, his armored hand dwarfing the rifle's grip. Pulled the power pack, studied the energy signature. His HUD showed the conversion calculations. 1 Imperial power pack equals approximately 45 plasma cells for his own weapons. Inefficient, but workable. The Slayer began systematically stripping the armory. Power packs vanished into his suit's dimensional storage, a pocket of compressed space where he carried ammunition and equipment. Thermal detonators could be adapted for his grenade launcher. The facility's stockpile of Tibana gas could recharge his energy weapons for weeks. But it was the room beyond the armory that made him pause. A laboratory, small but sophisticated. Imperial scientists had been studying something here, something they'd abandoned in their haste. Containment units lined one wall, each holding samples of... He didn't have words for it. His HUD identified the substance as Kyber crystal fragments, corrupted variant. Dozens of them, glowing faintly red, each one pulsing with that familiar dark side energy signature. The same energy that had fed his Praetor's suit when he crushed the holocron. His armor's sensors detected something else, a larger containment unit at the room's center, reinforced and shielded. Through the transparisteel viewport, he saw a single intact Kyber crystal the size of his fist. Not red like the Sith corrupted fragments, but a sickly yellow-orange, pulsing erratically like a dying heartbeat. The console beside the container displayed data in Imperial scientific notation. His suit's translation systems parsed it. Synthetic Kyber crystal, unstable. Bleeding process incomplete. Subject demonstrates cascading harmonic degradation. Recommend disposal via solar immersion. They'd been trying to corrupt a Kyber crystal, force it to the dark side through torture and dark side immersion, a process the Sith called bleeding. But something had gone wrong. The crystal was rejecting the corruption, fighting back, slowly destroying itself in the process. The Slayer understood conflict, understood something that would rather die than submit. He overrode the containment unit's locks, a simple matter of ripping the control panel from the wall. The transparisteel lid hissed open. The moment his armored hand touched the unstable crystal, several things happened at once. First, the crystal's degradation accelerated. It was dying, its structure collapsing, and it recognized the Slayer's touch as one final chance to strike back at the darkness that had tortured it. Second, the Slayer's Praetor's suit attempted to absorb the crystal's energy like it had the corrupted holocron. But this energy was different. Not pure dark side, but something in flux, fighting between light and corruption. Third, the crystal exploded. Not physically, the structure remained intact in his hand, but its energy detonated outward in a wave of pure force power that had nowhere to go except into the Slayer's armor. His Praetor's suit absorbed it reflexively, power systems overloading as incompatible energies collided within the conversion matrix. Pain. Real, searing pain. The kind he hadn't felt since the betrayer had killed Daisy, since he'd been entombed in that cursed sarcophagus. The crystal's dying scream resonated through him, and for one terrible moment, he experienced what it had endured. Centuries of imprisonment, torture, forced corruption, rejection of everything it had been created to be. The Slayer's fist clenched around the crystal. His armor's systems went haywire, readouts flickering, power distribution erratic. But through the chaos, something unexpected happened. The Praetor's suit's Argent energy conversion systems, designed to process demonic corruption, began adapting to this new form of power. The crystal stabilized. Its color shifted from sickly yellow-orange to a deep, violent crimson. Not the red of Sith corruption, but the red of rage purified through suffering. The erratic pulsing steadied into a rhythmic thrum that matched the Slayer's own heartbeat. When he opened his fist, the crystal hovered above his palm, no longer dying, no longer fighting itself, reforged, just like him. His HUD displayed new data. Secondary power source integrated. Energy absorption efficiency increased 47%. Weapon systems enhanced. The Slayer closed his fist around the crystal and it vanished. Not into his storage, but into the Praetor's suit itself, integrating into the armor's power core. He felt it there, a constant presence, feeding him energy that tasted different from Argent. Cleaner somehow. Still violent, still furious, but without Hell's corruption. The Force. He was drawing power from the Force itself now. filtering it through his armor systems, converting it into something he could use. The Kyber crystal acted as a conduit, and because it had been broken and remade, it didn't care about light or dark. It only understood rage directed at those who would corrupt and enslave. The Slayer turned from the laboratory, his enhanced systems already identifying new capabilities. His energy shield recharged faster, his weapons hit harder, and the dark side energies that saturated Mustafar no longer felt alien. They felt like fuel waiting to be harvested. He exited the facility as additional Imperial transports appeared on the horizon, bringing reinforcements now that Vader had retreated. The Slayer's motion tracker counted 40 incoming stormtroopers, 2 AT-ST walkers, and what his database identified as an Inquisitor transport. More fuel for the fire. But this time, he had a new tool. The Slayer raised his hand, and without conscious thought, the Force responded. Not with finesse or control. He had no training, no understanding of its philosophy. But raw power recognized raw power. A massive chunk of the destroyed facility tore free from its foundation and launched toward the incoming transports like an artillery shell. The projectile struck the lead transport dead center. Metal crumpled. The vehicle spiraled out of control, crashing into Mustafar's obsidian wastes in a ball of flame. The other transports scattered, pilots screaming into their comms about an enemy Force user. The Doomslayer looked at his hand, at the faint crimson glow emanating from his armor's power core. The Kyber crystal pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, teaching his Praetor's suit how to weaponize this galaxy's fundamental energy. He was adapting, learning, growing stronger with every dark side nexus he destroyed, every corrupted Force user he killed. The Empire had saturated this galaxy with darkness, built monuments to suffering, turned the Force itself into a tool of oppression. They'd created an all-you-can-eat buffet for something that fed on corruption. The remaining transports were retreating now, their commanders recognizing the futility of engaging. The Slayer let them go. They would report to their superiors. Delistit, tell them about the armored demon who fought Vader and survived, who could now manipulate the Force without training, who grew stronger with every battle. Let them tell Palpatine. Let the Emperor know that something was systematically dismantling his empire of darkness, one fortress at a time. The Doomslayer activated his suit's nav systems, scanning Mustafar's surface for additional dark side signatures. 3 more temples, 2 meditation chambers, 1 suspected Sith artifact cache. He began walking toward the nearest target, his armor's systems already calculating optimal approach vectors. Behind him, the ruins of Outpost Theta 7 smoldered. The unstable Kyber crystal that should have been destroyed now beat within his armor, like a second heart. And somewhere in the Force, sensitive beings across the galaxy felt a disturbance, not light, not dark, but something else entirely. Something hungry. The Executor carved through hyperspace, its massive wedge-shaped hull dwarfing the escort fleet that accompanied it. In his meditation chamber, Darth Vader sat in darkness, his damaged armor undergoing emergency repairs by medical droids. His breathing was labored even by his standards, each cycle of his respirator a reminder of Mustafar's old wounds and fresh ones. The hologram projector activated without warning, bathing the chamber in cold blue light. Emperor Palpatine's wizened face materialized, cowled in shadow, eyes burning yellow beneath heavy brows. Lord Vader, the Emperor's voice carried the weight of barely contained fury. You engaged the intruder and failed to destroy it. Worse, you retreated. Explain. Vader rose from his meditation seat, servos whining. The entity is unlike anything we have encountered, my master. It exists outside the Force. My telekinetic abilities cannot touch it directly. Force lightning damages its armor, but does not incapacitate, and its weaponry. He paused, choosing words carefully. It wielded technology that nearly breached my defenses entirely. Palpatine's fingers steepled beneath his chin. The Inquisitors are dead, a Sith temple destroyed, Imperial forces routed. And you tell me this creature is immune to the Force? His voice dropped to a serpentine whisper. Nothing is immune to the Force, Lord Vader. The Force binds all living things. This entity may not be alive, Vader countered. Not in the way we understand. Its presence is absent, a void wrapped in armor and rage. Rage can be manipulated, directed, controlled. Palpatine leaned forward, his hologram flickering. I want this creature captured and brought to Coruscant. If it can resist the Force, imagine what we could learn, what weapons we could forge. His grin was predatory. What servants we could create. Vader's respirator punctuated the silence. It will not be captured easily. Then do not capture it easily. Palpatine's tone hardened. Marshal whatever force is necessary. I am dispatching Inquisitor reinforcements, the Second Sister, the Fourth Sister, and Grand Inquisitor Malorum. Additionally, Admiral Thrawn's Chimaera will join your task force. The Chiss understands how to fight unconventional threats. And if the entity cannot be taken alive. Palpatine's expression turned contemplative. Then you will ensure it dies in a way that allows us to study its remains, its armor, its weapons, everything. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. But Lord Vader, I sense you are troubled by more than this creature's power. What else? Vader hesitated, a rare display of uncertainty. It consumed the dark side energy from the temple, absorbed the Inquisitor's connection to the Force when it killed them. And when I reached out through the Force after returning to orbit, I sensed something new. His artificial voice carried a note of concern. It has integrated a kyber crystal into its systems. The entity is learning to weaponize the Force despite existing outside it. For the first time, Emperor Palpatine looked genuinely intrigued. Fascinating. A being that feeds on darkness while remaining untouchable by it. That learns our power without understanding our philosophy. His smile returned, colder than before. Find it, Lord Vader, before it consumes too much and becomes unmanageable. The hologram died, leaving Vader alone in darkness once more. On Mustafar's surface, the Doomslayer stood before the second Sith temple, larger than the first, older, its stones carved with glyphs in a language that predated the Old Republic. His Houthi had analyzed the structure. 3 subterranean levels, multiple dark side energy signatures, defensive architecture suggesting active guardians rather than automated systems. He descended the entrance stairs, and the temple responded. Ancient mechanisms grown to life, powered by dark side rituals that had sustained them for millennia. From alcoves along the walls emerged Sith war droids, hulking constructs of black metal and crimson circuitry, their optical sensors glowing with malevolent intelligence. The first droid attacked with a vibroblade the size of a man, the weapon humming as it sliced toward the Slayer's neck. He caught the blade with his armored forearm, servo motors straining against the droid's hydraulic strength. Sparks showered where vibrating metal met Praetor's suit plating. The Slayer's other hand drew his combat shotgun, a different weapon than the super shotgun, fully automatic, designed for sustained fire. He pressed the barrel against the droid's chest cavity and held the trigger. Plasma bolts tore through ancient armor plating, shredding internal mechanisms. The droid staggered back, smoke pouring from the wound, then collapsed into a heap of scrap. 3 more droids emerged from the shadows. The Slayer's tactical overlay painted optimal firing solutions, calculated ammunition expenditure, predicted movement patterns based on their ancient programming. They moved with coordinated precision, flanking maneuvers, suppressive fire from integrated blasters, one attempting to close for melee, while others provided cover. He met them with calculated violence. A frag grenade from his equipment launcher scattered their formation. His heavy cannon's micro-missiles tracked 2 targets simultaneously, the explosions tearing limbs from torsos. The 3rd droid closed to melee range, its vibroblade carving a deep gouge across his chest plate. Armor integrity, 58%. The Slayer grabbed the droid's blade arm at the elbow joint and twisted. Hydraulics screamed. The arm tore free in a spray of oil and coolant. Before the droid could compensate, he drove the severed limb through its optical sensor array, the vibroblade still humming as it carved through its former owner's skull casing. More droids poured from deeper chambers, 12, 2 dozen, their footsteps echoing through stone corridors. The temple was defended far more heavily than the first. The Slayer's ammunition counter ticked downward with each engagement. 62 shotgun shells remaining, 140 plasma cells, 3 frag grenades, no BFG charges. He needed to change tactics. The Kyber crystal integrated into his armor pulsed, responding to his need. The Force flowed through it, not with the control of a Jedi or the passion of a Sith, but with the focused brutality of a weapon seeking targets. The Slayer raised his hand, and a Sith war droid weighing half a ton lifted off the ground. He'd seen Vader do this, use the Force to manipulate objects, hurl them as weapons. The Slayer's approach was less refined. He simply seized the droid telekinetically and threw it at its companions with all the force his rage could muster. The projectile crashed through the formation like a wrecking ball, scattering droids and pulverizing ancient mechanisms. The remaining droids adapted, spreading out to prevent similar tactics. But the Slayer was already moving, dashing through their lines, his chainsaw roaring to life. The blade met Sith metal in a shower of sparks, carving through joints and power cores. Each kill fed his armor's energy reserves through the absorption systems, not much from mechanical enemies, but enough to sustain him. He reached the 2nd level, where the temple's true purpose revealed itself. A meditation chamber, vast and circular, its floor inscribed with a massive Sith ritual circle. At the center stood a sarcophagus, not empty like most tombs, but occupied. The dark side radiated from it in waves, centuries of accumulated malevolence. The sarcophagus lid exploded outward. What emerged wasn't human anymore, if it ever had been. Mummified flesh stretched over ancient bones, eye sockets burning with red Force energy. Robes that had once been elegant, now tattered and corrupted. A Sith Lord preserved beyond death through dark side rituals, animated by hatred so pure it defied mortality. At last, the corpse spoke, its voice like grinding stone. A worthy vessel arrives. Your armor, your strength. I will claim them and walk the galaxy once more. The Doomslayer's response was to level his plasma rifle and open fire. The undead Sith Lord raised a skeletal hand, and the bolt stopped mid-air, held by telekinetic force. Fool, I am Darth Scabrous, and I have transcended death itself. Your weapons are... The Slayer's BFG fired. He'd been charging it since entering the temple, letting the weapon's capacitors fill while he dealt with the droids. The green orb of pure Argent energy crossed the distance in a heartbeat. Too fast for even Force precognition to predict. Too powerful for telekinesis to redirect. The explosion vaporized Darth Scabrous' physical form, reducing ancient flesh and bone to constituent atoms. But the dark side energy that animated him survived. A screaming vortex of malevolent force power without a body to contain it. The energy lashed out blindly, seeking any living vessel, trying to possess the Slayer through sheer metaphysical force. It met the Kyber crystal integrated into his armor. The crystal flared brilliant crimson, drawing the dark side energy into itself like a black hole consuming light. The Praetor suit's conversion systems activated, processing the corrupted force power, filtering it through Argent energy matrices, breaking it down into raw fuel. Darth Scabrous' millennia of accumulated darkness became nothing more than ammunition for the Slayer's weapons. His HUD showed full charge on all systems, BFG capacitors at maximum, ammunition reserves topped off. Armor integrity climbing as nanite repair systems worked overtime, fueled by the absorbed energy. The Slayer stood in the silent meditation chamber, surrounded by destroyed droids and the remnants of a Sith Lord who'd thought himself immortal. The temple's dark side presence was fading, consumed, leaving only empty stone and broken mechanisms. He'd learned something crucial. The more powerful the dark side nexus, the more energy he could absorb. The Sith had spent centuries building monuments to their power, concentrating darkness in temples and artifacts and corrupted crystals. They'd created a network of fuel depots spanning the galaxy, and he'd only just begun to tap it. The Slayer's nav systems updated with new data pulled from the temple's ancient archives. Korriban, the Sith homeworld. Dromund Kaas, a planet drowning in dark side storms. Ziost, Malachor Fi, Exegol. Dozens of worlds where the Sith had concentrated their power, built their monuments, entombed their dead. A map to everything the Empire held sacred. A menu for the feast to come. The rebellion's hidden base on Yavin 4 had survived through secrecy and constant vigilance. General John Dodonna stood in the command center, reviewing reports from their scattered intelligence network, when Lieutenant Bren Durlin burst through the doors. "General, you need to see this. Imperial communications are going insane." Dodonna followed him to the communication station, where their best slicer had intercepted encrypted Imperial transmissions. The messages painted an impossible picture. 5 Inquisitors dead on Mustafar. Darth Vader himself forced to retreat. Imperial facilities across the Outer Rim reporting attacks by an unknown hostile that consumed dark side nexuses. Consumed? Dodonna frowned at the terminology. What does that mean? "We're not sure, sir. But every location hit had some connection to Sith artifacts or dark side presence, and the attacks are escalating." Durlin pulled up a star map, showing red markers spreading from Mustafar outward. "Whatever this thing is, it's moving fast. 3 temples destroyed in 2 days. The Empire is scrambling to protect their remaining sites." Mon Mothma entered the command center, her face grave. "The Senate in exile wants to know if this is our doing. They're worried we've created something we can't control." "It's not ours," Dodonna said firmly. "We don't have assets capable of fighting Vader, and we certainly don't destroy Sith temples. We barely know where most of them are." "Then who?" Mothma moved to study the map. "Or what?" On the Star Destroyer Chimera, Admiral Thrawn stood before a holographic tactical display, his red eyes studying the pattern of attacks. Unlike most Imperial officers, the Chiss was silent, contemplative, analyzing data with the precision of an artist studying a masterwork. "Admiral," his tactical officer ventured, "Lord Vader has ordered us to Korriban. He believes the entity will target the Sith homeworld next." Thrawn's blue-skinned fingers traced the attack pattern on the display. A logical assumption, but incorrect. This entity does not think like the Sith. It does not seek power for its own sake. He pointed to the destroyed locations. Notice the escalation. First, a minor temple, then a larger one, then facilities with active guardians and more concentrated dark side energy. It's testing itself, his second-in-command realized. Learning what it can handle. Precisely. Thrawn's eyes narrowed. And there is one location that offers the perfect next escalation: significant dark side concentration, active Imperial presence, and strategic value that would attract attention. He manipulated the display, highlighting a planet. Fortress Inquisitorius, on Noor. The tactical officer paled. That's the Inquisitor's headquarters. If it attacks there, we will be waiting. Thrawn turned to his crew. Set course for the Mustafar system. We will establish a blockade and track the entity when it departs. Commander Vanto, prepare the Nogri Death Commandos. If our quarry proves resistant to the Force, we will see how it handles threats that rely on skill rather than mysticism. The Doomslayer emerged from Mustafar's third temple as dawn broke across the volcanic landscape. Behind him, the structure collapsed into its own foundation. Another dark side nexus reduced to rubble. His armor was scorched and pitted, integrity at 42% after 3 days of continuous combat. But his energy reserves were overflowing, and his weapons were fully charged. His HUD displayed a new notification: Praetor's suit adaptation complete. Force energy integration stable. The Kyber crystal in his chest pulsed steadily, no longer fighting itself, fully synchronized with the Argent energy systems. He could feel it now, the force flowing through the galaxy like an invisible current. Most of it was neutral, ambient, harmless. But in certain places, it concentrated and curdled, corrupted by centuries of Sith ritual and Imperial oppression. Those places called to him like beacons. His nav systems highlighted the next target based on intercepted Imperial transmissions. Noor, the ocean moon in the Mustafar system. Fortress Inquisitorius, where the Empire trained its Jedi hunters, where they stored artifacts confiscated from the Order, where the dark side was concentrated and weaponized. The perfect next target. But first, he needed transport. His tactical overlay identified an Imperial garrison 3 kilometers east, small, lightly defended, with a shuttle designated for Inquisitor use. The Slayer began walking, his motion trackers showing the garrison's perimeter defenses coming online as they detected his approach. They'd had days to prepare. Trenches dug into volcanic rock, E-web emplacements positioned for overlapping fields of fire, ATST walkers positioned at strategic choke points. 2 full companies of stormtroopers, commanded by officers who'd studied the footage from his previous engagements. Commander Trent watched through macro binoculars as the armored figure approached, walking with mechanical inevitability. All units, weapons free. Focus fire on the target. Do not let it close to melee range. The first volley came from 50 E-web heavy blasters firing simultaneously. Red energy bolts converged on the Slayer from multiple angles, a storm of plasma designed to overwhelm even vehicle-grade shielding. His energy shield deployed, absorbing the initial barrage, the hard light barrier crackling under sustained assault. The shield collapsed after 6 seconds. Blaster fire struck his armor directly, superheating plates, scoring deep gouges. But the Slayer didn't slow. He raised his ballista, the weapon fully charged from absorbed dark side energy, and fired. The bolt crossed 800 meters in less than a second, striking an E-web emplacement dead center. The explosion vaporized the gun crew and sent shrapnel scything through nearby positions. The AT-ST walkers opened fire with their chin-mounted blaster cannons. Heavy bolts, powerful enough to penetrate light armor, hammered the Slayer's position. He dashed left, teleporting through the kill zone, appearing behind cover. His equipment launcher fired ice bombs that flash-froze the nearest walker's leg joints. The massive machine took one more step before its frozen actuators shattered, sending it crashing face-first into volcanic rock. Stormtroopers advanced in disciplined formations, laying down suppressive fire. But they'd trained to fight rebels, poorly equipped insurgents with outdated weapons. The Slayer was something else entirely. His heavy cannon's micro-missiles tracked multiple targets simultaneously, each warhead finding a trooper's center mass. Explosions rippled through their formations, scattering them. A TIE bomber screamed overhead, dropping its payload. Proton bombs detonated across the battlefield, each explosion powerful enough to crater reinforced bunkers. The Slayer's motion tracker painted the bomber's trajectory. He switched to his plasma rifle, leading the target, and fired a sustained burst. The superheated plasma caught the TIE fighter's solar panel, melting through the wing. The craft spun out of control, engines screaming, before slamming into the garrison's command center. The explosion took out 3 more E-Web emplacements and killed the officers coordinating the defense. With their command structure shattered, the stormtroopers' disciplined resistance crumbled into chaos. Some held position, continuing to fire. Others broke and ran. The second AT-ST tried to retreat, backing away while maintaining suppressive fire. The Slayer's BFG answered, one shot that vaporized the walker, its crew, and the stormtroopers sheltering behind it. The battle lasted 7 minutes. When the Slayer reached the garrison's central compound, he found only corpses and burning wreckage. The Inquisitor shuttle sat on its landing pad, engines still warm, automated systems active. He approached the vessel, a sleek Lambda-class design, smaller than military transports, but fast and well-armed. The boarding ramp was sealed, mag-locked from inside. The Slayer grabbed the ramp's edge with both hands and simply pulled. Servo motors screamed, metal shrieked. The ramp tore free from its housing in a shower of sparks. Inside, the shuttle's interior was austere and functional. Navigation systems showed recent coordinates: Coruscant, Nur, Viyun, Korriban. The Inquisitor's standard patrol routes. He accessed the Nevi computer, his armor's systems interfacing with Imperial technology through brute force hacking protocols. Nur, distance, 0.3 light years. Travel time via hyperspace, 14 minutes. The Slayer settled into the pilot's seat, designed for human proportions, too small for his armored bulk. He didn't care. His hands moved across the controls with surprising efficiency, his combat computer analyzing the shuttle's systems and translating them into tactical data. Repulsor lift engines engaged. The shuttle rose from its pad, leaving the burning garrison behind. As he cleared Mustafar's atmosphere, proximity alarms screamed. The tactical display lit up with new contacts. 3 Imperial Star Destroyers in high orbit, dozens of TIE fighters on intercept courses, and 1 Superstar Destroyer holding position near the system's edge. The Executor. Vader was waiting. The comm system crackled to life, Vader's voice filling the cockpit. Unknown entity. You have stolen Imperial property and violated restricted space. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed. The Slayer's response was to plot a jump to hyperspace. But the moment he engaged the hyperdrive, his sensors detected a problem. Imperial interdictor cruisers had deployed gravity well projectors throughout the system. 4 of them, positioned at cardinal points, creating overlapping fields that prevented hyperspace jumps. He was boxed in. TIE fighters swarmed around the shuttle, dozens of them, firing in coordinated patterns. The Lambda-class shuttle's shields flared, absorbing hits, but they wouldn't last long. The Star Destroyers were moving into bombardment positions, their turbo laser batteries charging. Vader's voice came again. "You cannot escape, and you cannot fight an entire fleet. Surrender, and the Emperor may show mercy." The Doomslayer studied the tactical display, analyzing the trap Thrawn had designed. The interdictors were the key. Destroy them, and hyperspace became accessible. But they were positioned behind the Star Destroyer screen, protected by thousands of turbo lasers and hundreds of fighters. A direct assault was suicide, which was why the Slayer aimed the shuttle directly at the nearest Star Destroyer and pushed the engines to maximum thrust. The Lambda-class shuttle screamed across the gap, dodging TIE fighter fire, weaving through turbo laser bolts. The Star Destroyer loomed ahead, its massive hull filling the viewport. Point defense batteries opened fire, trying to shoot down what they assumed was a suicide run. At the last second, the Slayer pulled up hard, engines screaming. The shuttle skimmed across the Star Destroyer's upper hull, so close that the shields crackled against the ship's deflector screens. TIE fighters pursuing him couldn't match the maneuver. 3 crashed into the destroyer's superstructure, their impacts blossoming into fireballs. Using the Star Destroyer as cover, the Slayer curved around toward the first interdictor. The cruiser was smaller than a Star Destroyer, but heavily shielded, its gravity well projector pulsing with blue energy. Defensive turbo lasers tracked his approach, filling space with lethal fire. The shuttle's shields collapsed, hull plating superheated. Alarms screamed throughout the cockpit, but the Slayer held course, aiming for the interdictor's gravity well generator. He activated the shuttle's self-destruct sequence, set the timer for 5 seconds, and ejected. The Praetor suit's thrusters fired, carrying him through vacuum as the Lambda-class shuttle continued on its trajectory. Behind him, TIE fighters tried to track his small form against the star field, their targeting computers struggling with a target without an engine signature. The shuttle struck the interdictor's gravity well generator dead center. The combined explosion, shuttle's reactor overload meeting the gravity well's destabilization, tore a hole through the cruiser's shields and hull. The interdictor listed, its gravity projection collapsing, secondary explosions rippling through its interior. And suddenly, 1/4 of the hyperspace trap was gone. The Slayer's thrusters angled him toward a piece of debris, a section of TIE fighter wing tumbling through space. He caught it, using it as a shield against blaster fire, orienting toward the second interdictor. The range was 3,000 kilometers, too far to reach before the remaining Star Destroyers annihilated him. Then he felt it, the Kyber crystal in his chest pulsing with sudden intensity. The force flowing through the debris field, through the destroyed ships, through space itself. And in that moment, the Slayer understood something the Jedi and Sith had forgotten. The Force wasn't just in living things. It was in everything. He reached out, not with technique or training, but with pure will focused through the Kyber crystal. The Force responded, seizing debris throughout the battlefield, shattered TIE fighters, hull fragments, destroyed missiles. Hundreds of pieces, ranging from fist-sized to shuttle-sized, all answering his rage. And he hurled them at the second interdictor like a shotgun blast made of starship debris. Admiral Thrawn watched the debris storm approach the second interdictor with cold fascination. Fascinating. It has weaponized the battlefield itself, not with precision, but with overwhelming force. He turned to his tactical officer. Order the Vengeance to intercept with point defense fire. and signal the TIE squadrons, break off pursuit. They're just adding to its ammunition. But the order came too late. The storm of debris, twisted metal, shattered solar panels, severed cockpit sections, slammed into the second interdictor's shields like a kinetic meteor shower. The deflector screens flared, overloaded, collapsed. A chunk of TIE fighter hull punched through the bridge viewport, explosively decompressing the command deck. The interdictor's engines died, leaving it tumbling in orbit. 2 down, 2 remaining. The Slayer's thrusters fired again, pushing him toward a derelict Star Destroyer section drifting from an earlier battle. His HUD calculated trajectory, fuel consumption, time to target. The remaining interdictors were repositioning, moving behind the Star Destroyer screen, using capital ships as shields. Smart, but not smart enough. Vader's voice crackled across open Imperial channels. All ships, focused fire on the entity. Turbo lasers, ion cannons, everything. Obliterate that section of space. The Imperial fleet responded as one. Hundreds of turbo laser batteries swiveled, locking onto the Slayer's position. Green and red energy bolts converged on the debris field, vaporizing metal, superheating vacuum. The Slayer's armor took glancing hits, shields regenerating and collapsing in rapid cycles, plating scorching under sustained fire. He needed cover, needed time, needed... The derelict Star Destroyer section exploded as a turbo laser barrage hit its reactor core. The blast created a temporary cloud of superheated plasma and debris. The Slayer dashed through it, using the explosion's expansion to mask his trajectory. Sensors couldn't track him through that much interference. He emerged on the other side, angling toward the nearest intact vessel, a TIE bomber that had strayed too far from its squadron. His armored hand grabbed the bomber's solar panel as he passed, ripping the craft from its flight path. The pilot screamed into his comm before the Slayer tore open the cockpit hatch and ejected him into vacuum. Now he had a ship again. The TIE bomber was cramped, designed for pilots in slim flight suits, not armored warriors in Praetor suits. The Slayer wedged himself into the cockpit, his armored bulk cracking the seat restraints. His gauntleted hands barely fit the controls. But the bomber had engines, weapons, and most importantly, ordnance. The bomber's payload indicators showed 6 proton bombs remaining. The Slayer punched the engines to maximum, angling toward the third interdictor. TIE fighters gave chase, but the bomber was faster than standard fighters, designed for hit-and-run strikes. Turbo laser fire from the Star Destroyers tried to track him, but he was moving erratically now, using the Force not with skill, but with violent intent, pushing debris into firing solutions, creating micro-impacts that threw off targeting computers. The third interdictor's commander saw him coming. All batteries fire. Don't let it get close. The cruiser's defensive turbo lasers created a wall of fire. The TIE bomber's shields collapsed immediately, hull plating superheating, systems failing. Proximity alarms screamed. The bomber was falling apart around him, wings shearing off, cockpit cracking, minutes from total structural failure. The Slayer released all 6 proton bombs simultaneously. The warheads streaked forward on ballistic trajectories, their sensors locked onto the interdictor's gravity well generator. Point defense fire destroyed 3 bombs, but 3 got through. The combined detonation cracked the generator's housing, sending energy feedback cascading through the cruiser's power grid. The third interdictor's gravity well collapsed, taking half the ship with it. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull as power conduits overloaded. The cruiser began listing, venting atmosphere, dying. 3 down, 1 left. The TIE bomber finally gave up, engines cutting out, life support failing. The Slayer ejected as the craft began its death spiral toward Mustafar's atmosphere. His thrusters engaged, but the fuel reserves were nearly depleted. Not enough to reach the final interdictor, not enough to escape the kill zone. The Imperial fleet was repositioning, forming a sphere around his location. No escape vector, no debris close enough to use. Just vacuum and death closing in from all sides. On the Executor, Vader studied the tactical display. "He's trapped. All batteries, fire on my mark." "Lord Vader." Thrawn's voice interrupted from the Chimera. "I would advise caution. The entity is most dangerous when cornered. Observe its pattern. It adapts, improvises, escalates. If we press too hard, then we press harder," Vader growled. "All ships, fire!" The sky lit up with emerald death. Hundreds of turbo lasers fired simultaneously, a converging storm of energy that should have vaporized anything caught in its focus. The Slayer's armor flared as the first bolt struck, shields overloading instantly, plating beginning to melt under the sustained assault. He reached deep into his reserves, into the kyber crystal burning in his chest, into the Force itself. Not asking, not channeling, demanding. The crystal responded with desperate fury, drawing on every ounce of absorbed dark side energy, every corrupted Force user he'd killed, every Sith temple he'd destroyed. And the Force answered with a barrier. Not elegant like a Jedi's protection, not refined like a Sith's conjured shield. Just raw energy shaped into a sphere around his body, a last-ditch defense born of rage and refusal to die. The turbo laser fire struck the barrier and slowed, not stopped, but decelerated, diffused, weakened enough that his armor could withstand the diminished impact. But the barrier was eating through his reserves at catastrophic rates. His HUD showed energy levels dropping. 80%, 60, 40, 20. In seconds, he'd be drained, defenseless, dead. The Slayer needed more fuel, more dark side energy, more corrupted Force to consume and convert. His sensors swept the battlefield desperately. There, the Executor, Vader's flagship, where the Dark Lord himself stood, radiating darkness like a miniature sun, where centuries of accumulated suffering from Vader's victims had soaked into the ship's very structure, where the dark side was concentrated in quantities that dwarfed even the temples. A floating feast, if he could reach it. The Slayer's barrier collapsed, reserves exhausted. Turbo laser fire resumed at full intensity. But in that moment of searching, his Hoodie had calculated an intercept trajectory. One chance, one vector, one desperate gambit. He fired every thruster at once, overloading the fuel cells, pushing his armor's propulsion systems beyond safety limits. The acceleration should have liquefied an unaugmented human. The Slayer's augmented physiology barely withstood it. Blood vessels rupturing, organs compressing, bones creaking under the G-forces. He shot through the barrage like a bullet, turbo laser bolts missing by meters, by centimeters, one bolt grazing his shoulder and vaporizing half the pauldron. His trajectory carried him past TIE fighters too surprised to fire, past Star Destroyer weapons too slow to track, directly toward the Executor's hangar bay. "He's coming here?" The hangar control officer screamed. "Close the atmospheric shield. Close it now." The magnetic shield began cycling shut, the blue energy barrier strengthening to prevent breaches. But the Slayer was already through, his momentum carrying him across the hangar deck at terminal velocity. He hit the deck hard enough to crater the durasteel, his armor absorbing the impact through emergency shock systems. Klaxons wailed throughout the superstar destroyer. Stormtroopers poured into the hangar from every entrance, hundreds of them, their blasters raised. TIE fighters on maintenance racks activated, pilots scrambling to their cockpits. Automated turrets dropped from ceiling mounts. The Doomslayer rose from the impact crater, his armor smoking, damage warnings scrolling across his HUD. Integrity at 28%. Energy reserves at 4%. Ammunition critically low. Every rational calculation said he should be dead or dying. But he was inside now. Inside the ship that reeked of dark side corruption. Inside the vessel where Vader's suffering had left psychic scars in the very walls. Inside a massive battery of the exact energy his armor craved. The kyber crystal in his chest pulsed hungrily. The Slayer raised his hand, and the Force responded. Not with his energy, with the ship's. With the darkness Vader had cultivated through years of atrocity. With the accumulated suffering of everyone who died screaming aboard this vessel. He pulled on it, ripped it free from the bulkheads and deck plating, absorbed it through the kyber crystal's ravenous hunger. His HUD flashed. Emergency energy absorption. Reserves replenishing. The stormtroopers opened fire. Red blaster bolts converged on him from 3 sides. The Slayer's shields deployed, fed by stolen darkness, deflecting the barrage. His super shotgun materialized in his hands, reloaded, recharged, ready. Both barrels roared, clearing a path through the white armored ranks. A TIE fighter lifted off from its maintenance rack, the pilot trying to strafe the intruder from the air. The Slayer's ballista tracked it, fired, and the fighter exploded in a shower of flaming debris. More TIE fighters attempted to take off, but he grabbed one telekinetically, raw force power channeled through pure rage, and hurled it into 2 others. The 3 craft exploded in a chain reaction that set off ammunition stores along the hangar's north wall. "Seal the hangar," someone screamed over the comm. "Trap it in there with us. No, wait." Too late. Blast doors began closing, cutting off the Slayer's exit vectors, but also trapping him with hundreds of targets. And more importantly, trapping him with a continuous supply of the dark side energy that permeated every molecule of Vader's flagship. The Slayer advanced through the chaos, weapons cycling, each kill feeding his reserves. Glory kills on wounded stormtroopers restored his armor's integrity. Absorbed dark side energy kept his shields regenerating. He was a closed-loop system of violence, growing stronger with every second he remained aboard this corrupted vessel. A squad of death troopers emerged, elite soldiers in black armor, carrying advanced weaponry. They moved with professional precision, laying down covering fire while others advanced. The Slayer's motion tracker painted them in red, calculated threat levels, marked priority targets. His plasma rifle answered with a sustained burst that carved through the first 3. The remaining death troopers scattered, using destroyed TIE fighters as cover, flanking. Smart, trained, dangerous. The Slayer triggered his equipment launcher, firing multiple ice bombs that flash froze their cover. Then he dashed through the formation, chainsaw roaring to life, the weapon carving through frozen durasteel and elite soldiers with equal efficiency. On the Executor's bridge, Vader felt the disturbance like a knife to the chest. His ship, his vessel, was being violated. The dark side energy he'd cultivated was being drained. He could feel it, like bleeding from a wound he couldn't see. "Bridge to all security teams." His voice carried absolute authority. "The entity has breached Hangar 7. I am deploying personally. All units, maintain perimeter, but do not engage. It feeds on the dark side. Your deaths will only make it stronger." Thrawn's voice crackled through the comm from the Chimera. "Lord Vader, I strongly advise against..." "Your advice is noted and ignored, Admiral." Vader's lightsaber ignited, the crimson blade casting his mask in bloody light. "This creature has made a fatal error. It has entered my domain." The Dark Lord strode from the bridge, cape billowing, his presence in the Force radiating outward like a dark sun. Every Force-sensitive being on the ship felt it, the promise of violence, the certainty of death, the cold fury of a Sith Lord defending his territory. In Hangar 7, the Doomslayer paused amid the carnage. His motion tracker detected a new signature approaching, massive presence, unmistakable malevolence. The hangar's few surviving personnel were retreating, abandoning their posts, fleeing the coming confrontation. The blast doors at the hangar's main entrance groaned open. Through the smoke and fire walked Darth Vader, his breathing echoing across the deck, his lightsaber held in the classic Gem-So guard position. This time, Vader's voice promised, there will be no retreat, no mercy, only victory or death. The Doomslayer's response was to chamber a round in his super shotgun and begin walking forward to meet him. Round 2. The hangar fell silent except for Vader's respirator and the crackling of fires. Two figures approached each other across scorched deck plating, walking past the wreckage of TIE fighters and the corpses of stormtroopers. The distance between them closed, 50 meters, 40, 30. Neither broke stride. Vader struck first, extending his left hand. A massive section of destroyed TIE fighter, easily 5 tons of twisted metal, tore free from the deck and hurtled toward the Slayer. Behind it came a second projectile, a third, a fourth. An avalanche of debris launched with killing force. The Slayer's response was crude but effective. He seized the dark side energy saturating the hangar, pulled it through the kyber crystal, and pushed. Raw telekinetic force met Vader's controlled assault. The debris stopped mid-flight, suspended between two opposing wills, then exploded outward in all directions as the forces canceled each other. Vader was already moving through the debris cloud, his force-enhanced speed carrying him forward impossibly fast. His lightsaber carved through smoke and shrapnel, aimed for the Slayer's neck joint, the weak point every armor design possessed. The crucible met it. Red blade struck red blade, and the collision sent a shockwave across the hangar that shattered viewport glass and overloaded nearby electronics. The two weapons locked, energy screaming against each other, neither giving ground. Vader's cybernetic strength, enhanced by the Force, met servo motors designed to fight Titan demons. "You are strong," Vader admitted, his mask inches from the Slayer's visor. "But strength without the Force is finite. You will tire. You will fail. And you will die." The Dark Lord pushed, channeling dark side energy through his limbs, his blade, his entire being. The Slayer pushed back, drawing on absorbed corruption, the kyber crystal burning in his chest like a second heart. For 5 seconds, they stood locked in perfect equilibrium. Then Vader disengaged, spinning away with Gem-So efficiency, his lightsaber transitioning immediately into a counterattack aimed at the Slayer's exposed flank. The blade should have carved through armor plating, should have bisected the warrior. The Slayer's left hand caught Vader's wrist. Servo-assisted strength clamped down like a vice. Vader felt his cybernetic wrist joint strain under the pressure, metal groaning, reinforced components beginning to buckle. Impossible. His prosthetics had been designed to withstand starship-grade hydraulics. The Slayer's right hand drove the crucible toward Vader's chest. Vader released his lightsaber, letting it deactivate and fall, his now free hand extending to catch the crucible's blade with the Force. The energy weapon stopped centimeters from his armor, held by telekinetic power. But his wrist was still trapped in the Slayer's grip. So Vader did what the Sith do best. He cheated. Force lightning erupted from his trapped hand at point-blank range, electricity arcing directly into the Slayer's armor. The Praetor suit's shields deployed, but couldn't stop lightning that was already inside his defenses. Electricity crawled across his chest plate, seeking gaps in the armor, burning into servo motors and power conduits. The Slayer's grip didn't loosen. Instead, his left hand began twisting, trying to snap Vader's wrist entirely. Vader poured more power into the lightning, drawing from the ship's ambient darkness, from his own suffering, from the Kyber crystal in his fallen lightsaber. The Praetor's suit began to fail. Warning klaxons screamed inside the Slayer's helmet. Armor integrity dropping, 40%, 35, 30. The electricity was cooking him inside his own armor. Temperature spiking, systems overloading. But before Vader could press his advantage, the Slayer triggered his flame belch. Incendiary gel sprayed across Vader's chest at point-blank range, coating his life support system. The gel ignited, flames licking across his armor, finding the cracks the BFG had created days earlier. Fire reached damaged circuits, compromised seals. Vader's breathing hitched. His respirator faltered. The flames weren't just burning, they were suffocating him, disrupting the delicate systems that kept his ruined lungs functional. He released the Force lightning, both hands flying to his chest, using the Force to smother the flames before they killed him. The Slayer's grip on his wrist was finally released as Vader threw himself backward, using telekinetic force to create distance. Both warriors staggered, damaged, desperate. Vader's armor was scorched, his breathing labored and irregular, his left wrist joint sparking. The Slayer's chest plate was blackened, armor integrity at 28%, several servo motors offline. They circled each other like wounded predators, each looking for an opening. Vader's lightsaber flew to his hand, igniting with a snap hiss. "You cannot win," he rasped through his damaged respirator. "Every moment, you remain aboard this ship. I draw strength from the dark side. You are in my domain." The Slayer's response was to switch to his heavy cannon and open fire. Micro-missiles streaked across the gap. Vader's lightsaber became a blur, deflecting some, his force powers redirecting others. But the sustained barrage forced him backward, made him defensive, prevented him from counterattacking. Then the Slayer did something unexpected. He holstered the heavy cannon mid-firing sequence and drew his super shotgun instead. The sudden weapon switch came a half-second before Vader anticipated it. By the time the Dark Lord adjusted his defensive posture, the shotgun was already discharging, both barrels at 10 meters. Vader's lightsaber deflected most of the plasma pellets, but the kinetic impact was too much. He was driven backward, boots skidding across the deck, slamming into a structural support pillar hard enough to crack his back armor. The impact jarred his already compromised respirator. His breathing became gasps, struggling, failing. The Slayer advanced, loading 2 fresh shells, the breech snapping closed with mechanical precision. Vader's hand extended, not at the Slayer, he'd learned that lesson, but at the hangar's structural supports. The Force seized load-bearing columns, twisted them, began tearing them free. The ceiling groaned, metal shrieked. The entire hangar started collapsing. Debris rained down, dura-steel beams, deck plating, destroyed equipment. The Slayer had to dodge, dash, abandon his offensive as thousands of tons of starship began falling toward him. Vader used the chaos to retreat, pulling himself deeper into the Executor's corridors, where the narrow passages would limit the Slayer's mobility advantage. The Slayer pursued, crashing through a collapsing bulkhead, his armor absorbing impacts that would have crushed an unarmored human. His motion tracker painted Vader's signature, moving through the ship's interior, heading deeper, toward the vessel's core. The corridors of the Executor were designed for humans, not armored warriors. The Slayer's shoulders scraped the walls. His bulk made the tight turns awkward. but he pressed forward, following Vader's trail through the ship's labyrinthine passages. Behind him, security doors were sealing, trying to trap him in sections that could be vented to space. Ahead, automated defenses were activating, turrets dropping from ceiling mounts, blast doors closing. Vader was using the ship itself as a weapon. The Slayer adapted. Ice bombs flash-froze turrets before they could fire. His ballista blew holes through blast doors. When security teams tried to ambush him from side passages, his chainsaw answered, the weapon carving through armor and flesh with equal efficiency. Every kill restored a fraction of his energy. Every absorbed dark side presence replenished his reserves slightly. The Executor was a floating buffet of corruption, and he was eating his way through it toward the source. Vader reached his meditation chamber, a sanctum at the ship's heart where he communed with the dark side, where the Emperor's hologram had delivered so many orders. He sealed the chamber's reinforced doors and knelt in the center, ignoring his damaged respirator's protests. Master, he spoke into the chamber's communication array. The entity has breached the Executor. I require assistance. The hologram projector activated, and Emperor Palpatine's face materialized, his expression furious. You allowed it onto your flagship? Your incompetence astounds me, Lord Vader. It is beyond conventional threats, Vader gasped. It feeds on the dark side, grows stronger from... I am aware, Palpatine snapped. Admiral Thrawn transmitted his analysis. The creature is adapting, learning, consuming everything we've built. And you led it directly to one of our most powerful vessels. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You have failed me for the last time. Vader's blood ran cold. Those words, he'd spoken them himself to subordinates countless times, always followed by execution. However, Palpatine continued, his tone shifting to calculated malice. Your failure may serve one final purpose. The entity thinks it hunts you, thinks the Executor is its prize. It does not realize that I have been watching, studying, preparing. His smile was predatory. Keep it occupied, Lord Vader. Die with honor if you must, but keep it there for exactly 14 minutes. What are you? The Death Star has been rerouted to your position. Its super laser is charging. In 14 minutes, it will fire, and both you and that creature will be vaporized along with the Executor. Palpatine's grin widened. Surely you can survive 14 minutes, Lord Vader. Or have you become so weak that even that is beyond you? The hologram died. Vader sat in darkness, his damaged respirator wheezing, his ruined body failing, his master's words echoing in his mind. 14 minutes, an eternity in combat, a heartbeat in the galaxy's span. Outside the meditation chamber, the Slayer was tearing through the ship's defenses, getting closer with every second. Vader could feel him through the Force. Rage incarnate, death walking, the antithesis of everything the Sith represented. The dark side fed the Sith power. But this creature consumed that power and grew stronger. For the first time since his duel with Obi-Wan on Mustafar, Darth Vader contemplated his own mortality. Not with fear. Fear was useful, energizing. This was something else. Acceptance, perhaps, or resignation. He rose to his feet, his damaged body protesting, and ignited his lightsaber one final time. The meditation chamber's door exploded inward, torn from its frame by impossible strength. Through the smoke stepped the Doomslayer. His armor scorched and battered, but his weapons ready, his presence radiating absolute certainty. Vader raised his blade. 14 minutes, he said quietly. All I need is 14 minutes. The Slayer's response was to load his final 2 BFG charges and begin walking forward. The final round had begun. The meditation chamber was circular, 30 meters in diameter, its walls lined with dark metal inscribed with Sith glyphs. Here, Vader had knelt before his master's hologram countless times, had meditated on his failures, had channeled his suffering into power. The dark side was woven into the very foundation of this room, and the Doomslayer could taste it. The BFG fired. The orb of green-argent energy crossed the chamber in a flash. Vader threw everything into his defense, a force barrier drawn from the room's ambient darkness, from his own life force, from desperation itself. The detonation consumed half the chamber in emerald fire, vaporizing Sith inscriptions, melting walls to slag. When the light cleared, Vader remained standing, barely. His barrier had held, but the cost was catastrophic. Blood leaked from his mask's lower seal. His respirator was failing completely now, each breath a ragged gasp. His right arm hung useless, servos shattered, but he was still alive, still fighting. The Slayer loaded his second BFG charge. "No," Vader rasped, his left hand extending. Not toward the Slayer. He'd learned that lesson 3 times over. Instead, he seized the meditation chamber itself with the Force. The walls, the floor, the ceiling. 10,000 tons of reinforced durasteel and dark metal. And he crushed it inward. The chamber collapsed like a closing fist. Walls folded inward, ceiling descended, floor buckled upward. The Slayer found himself in a shrinking cage of metal, pressure mounting from all sides. His armor's integrity warnings screamed. Structural failure imminent. 15 seconds until complete compression. The Slayer fired the BFG into the ceiling. The explosion tore through the collapsing chamber's roof, vaporizing deck plating, carving a hole upward through multiple levels of the Executor's superstructure. The decompression was instant and catastrophic. Atmosphere rushed out through the breach, carrying debris, bodies, loose equipment into space. Vader was prepared, anchoring himself with the Force, his environmental seal engaging. But the Slayer let the decompression carry him, riding the explosive current upward through the hole, ascending through 5 decks in as many seconds. Vader pursued, using the Force to leap between levels, his damaged body protesting every movement. Blood loss was severe. Respirator at 15% capacity. Right arm completely offline. Left wrist damaged. 13 minutes remaining. They emerged onto the Executor's upper hull. The surface of the Superstar Destroyer, stretching like a metal plane beneath Mustafar's red sky. Space combat raged around them. TIE fighters still engaging debris. Star Destroyers maintaining formation, and in the distance, growing larger by the second, the Death Star. The battle station's spherical form dominated the viewport, its superlaser dish already glowing with charging energy. The Slayer's HUD calculated impact time. 11 minutes, 43 seconds. He didn't care. His target was right here. Vader stood 20 meters away, his cape billowing in the thin atmosphere, his breathing barely functional, his body failing. But his lightsaber remained steady, his presence in the Force undiminished by physical damage. "Look." Vader gestured toward the Death Star with his working hand. "My master's final solution. That station's superlaser can destroy planets. Do you think your armor will survive it?" His voice was weakening. "Flee while you can. You've proven your strength. There is no shame in..." The Slayer's plasma rifle answered, bolts sizzling across the gap. Vader deflected them, his lightsaber moving on instinct, but each parry cost him. His damaged body couldn't maintain this pace, couldn't sustain prolonged combat. 10 minutes remaining. The Slayer advanced, switching weapons in fluid sequence. heavy cannon, ballista, combat shotgun. A relentless barrage that forced Vader into pure defense, backing him across the hull toward the ship's command tower. Each step was measured, inevitable, unstoppable. Vader tried one final gambit. He reached deep into the Executor's structure, finding the power conduits that fed the ship's systems, the reactor cores that sustained its shields and weapons, and he overloaded them. Explosions rippled through the superstar destroyer's interior. Power systems cascaded into failure. Secondary detonations tore through engineering sections. The massive vessel began listing, its engines dying, hull integrity compromised. "If I die here," Vader gasped, "you die with me." Trapped on a dead ship, drifting into the Death Star's firing solution. The Slayer didn't slow, didn't acknowledge the threat. He just kept walking, weapons raised, inexorable as death itself. 8 minutes. Vader's lightsaber fell from nerveless fingers. His left wrist had finally given out, the damaged joint unable to maintain grip. He caught the weapon with the Force, held it telekinetically, but the control was imperfect, draining. The Slayer holstered his weapons and drew the crucible. The two blades met one final time, but this clash was different. Vader's lightsaber flickered, wavered, held by telekinetic power rather than physical strength. The Slayer's crucible pressed down with servo-assisted force, driving the unstable blade toward Vader's chest. "Wait," Vader managed. Not a plea, a realization. You're not here for conquest, not for power." His breathing was almost gone now, each word barely audible. "You're here because we remind you of something you fought before, something that corrupted and enslaved." The Slayer's visor reflected Vader's mask, showing the Dark Lord his own image distorted by rage. "The Sith, the Empire." Vader's voice faded to a whisper. "We are your demons." The crucible descended. The blade punched through Vader's chest plate, through the life support housing, through the mechanical heart that had sustained him for decades. Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, the Emperor's fist, looked down at the weapon impaling him. And in his final moment, through the pain and the dying, Anakin Skywalker remembered what it felt like to be free. "Thank you." The light faded from Vader's mask. His presence in the Force didn't vanish. It transformed, released, liberated from decades of torture and corruption. What remained wasn't the darkness of Vader, but something else. Something that had been buried beneath suffering for too long. The Slayer withdrew the crucible. Vader's body fell, crashed to the hull, and lay still. The kyber crystal in the Slayer's chest pulsed, absorbing what remained of Vader's dark side presence. But there was something else now. A flicker of light mixed with the darkness. A hint of redemption achieved through death. The crystal processed it all, converted it, added it to the Slayer's reserves. His HUD showed full charge on all systems, full ammunition, maximum armor integrity. Everything repaired, restored, powered by one of the most powerful Force users in the galaxy's final moments. 5 minutes remaining until the Death Star fired. The Slayer turned toward the battle station, studying the massive construct through his helmet's enhanced optics. The super laser was nearly charged, its focusing dishes glowing green with contained power. Thrawn's fleet was retreating to minimum safe distance. TIE fighters had abandoned pursuit, racing away from the blast zone. The Executor was dead in space, a floating coffin waiting for its execution. The Slayer's HUD ran calculations. Distance to Death Star, 473 kilometers. Time to target at maximum thruster velocity, 6.2 minutes. Insufficient. He would be caught in the superlaser's blast before reaching the station, unless he used the one advantage he'd gained: the Force. The Kyber crystal in his chest had been teaching his Praetor's suit how to weaponize this galaxy's fundamental energy. He'd used it for crude telekinesis, for energy absorption, for barriers. But there was one application he hadn't tried yet: Force-enhanced movement. The Slayer's thrusters ignited at maximum burn, carrying him off the Executor's hull. But this time, he added the Force, not with technique or control, but with raw power channeled through the Kyber crystal. The energy wrapped around his armor, reducing friction, amplifying thrust, creating a telekinetic wake that pushed him faster than his thrusters alone could achieve. His acceleration was insane. 3 minutes to the Death Star. 2 minutes. The battle station loomed ahead, growing larger in his viewport, its superlaser almost ready to fire. 1 minute. The Death Star's commander stared at his sensors in disbelief. What is that? It's too small to be a fighter, too fast to be. It's the entity, his tactical officer screamed. The one that killed Lord Vader. It's heading directly for us. Fire the superlaser. Fire it now. It's not fully charged. If we fire early, I don't care. Fire! The Death Star's superlaser discharged at 83% capacity. The beam, powerful enough to crack continents even at partial charge, lanced through space toward the Slayer. He dashed. The teleportation carried him 300 meters laterally in an instant. The superlaser beam passed through the space he'd occupied a microsecond earlier, its heat alone enough to melt his armor if he'd been caught. But he wasn't caught. He was moving, dashing again, using the ability in rapid succession, burning through energy reserves, but covering distance impossibly fast. The Death Star's point defense batteries opened fire. Turbo lasers, ion cannons, laser batteries, thousands of weapons tracking his approach. The Slayer weaved through the barrage, dashing through gaps in the fire pattern, absorbing hits on his shields when avoidance was impossible. He crashed into the Death Star's surface near the superlaser's primary focusing dish, a massive concave array of durasteel and exotic crystals. His impact left a crater in the station's hull. Proximity alarms shrieked throughout the battle station. "It's on the station!" someone screamed. "All security teams to Sector 7 Alpha. Seal every bulkhead. We need to contain..." The Slayer's fist punched through the hull plating. Atmosphere vented explosively, carrying loose debris into space. He widened the hole, tearing through reinforced durasteel like paper, creating an entrance. Then he dropped inside, into the Death Star's superstructure, into the heart of the Empire's ultimate weapon. The corridors were vast, designed to accommodate the million-plus personnel required to operate the station. Stormtroopers responded immediately, companies converging from all directions. But these weren't regular troops. These were the Death Star's elite guards, the best soldiers the Empire could field, armed with heavy weapons and decades of training. They died anyway. The Slayer moved through the station like a force of nature, weapons cycling, each kill feeding his reserves. His HUD displayed a schematic pulled from captured Imperial databases, highlighting critical systems. Reactor core, 237 kilometers from current position. Estimated resistance, severe. He started running. Behind him, the Death Star's command crew watched their station being invaded by a single entity. Grand Moff Tarkin stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, face unreadable. "Estimated time until the intruder reaches the reactor?" he asked calmly. "At current rate, 43 minutes, sir." Tarkin nodded. "Then we have time. Seal all approach routes to the reactor. Deploy the Imperial Guard. And He paused, considering. Activate Project Carbonite. If we cannot kill this creature, perhaps we can freeze it for study. The Doomslayer advanced through the Death Star's depths, killing everything in his path. Imperial guards in crimson armor fell like the rest. Automated defenses were torn apart. Blast doors were demolished. Nothing slowed him for long. And with every second, every kill, every absorbed dark side presence, he grew stronger. The kyber crystal in his chest burned brighter, processing corruption faster, integrating power more efficiently. He was evolving, adapting, becoming something this galaxy had never seen before. A demon killer, baptized in the Force, fed by the galaxy's own darkness. Unstoppable, inevitable, consuming. The Death Star's reactor core awaited, and with it, the Empire's reckoning. The Death Star's reactor core was a cathedral of destruction. A sphere 3 kilometers in diameter, suspended in the station's heart, generating enough power to obliterate worlds. Catwalks crisscrossed the vast chamber, overlooking the pulsing energy core below. Here, at the bottom of a vertical shaft, lined with turbolaser batteries, the Doomslayer finally arrived. He stood on the main platform, surrounded by the last defenders, 50 Imperial guards, Grand Moff Tarkin flanked by senior officers, and rows of automated defenses. The air hummed with contained power. One critical hit to the reactor's stabilization systems would trigger a chain reaction that would consume the entire battle station. Tarkin studied the armored figure through calculating eyes. Remarkable. You've killed your way through my station. Absorbed power that should have destroyed you, and now stand before the Empire's greatest achievement. He gestured to the reactor. Destroy this, and you'll kill everyone aboard. Over 1 million Imperial personnel. Is that your intention? To become the very thing you seem to oppose? The Slayer raised his BFG, recharged, reloaded, ready. I thought as much, Tarkin said quietly. You're not a liberator. You're an ending. He nodded to his guards. Make it count. The Imperial guards attacked as one. Force pikes crackling with energy, moving with precision that exceeded standard stormtroopers. But they weren't Force users, weren't demons. Were just soldiers following orders, defending a weapon of genocide. The Slayer cut through them with methodical efficiency. His crucible carved through Force pikes and crimson armor. His weapons found every gap, every weakness. The guards died bravely, but died nonetheless, their sacrifice feeding the kyber crystal's hunger. Tarkin watched his final defense crumble, then drew a holdout blaster, futile, symbolic. The Emperor will replace me, replace this station. The Empire is eternal, and you are merely... The super shotgun's blast silenced him forever. The Slayer turned to the reactor core, studying the massive construct. His HUD ran calculations, identified critical systems, painted targeting solutions. One shot, one moment, one chance to cripple the Empire's symbol of absolute power. But before he could fire, his sensors detected something new. Dozens of hyperspace signatures emerging throughout the system, not Imperial vessels. These ships bore markings his database translated. Rebel Alliance. On the bridge of a modified Mon Calamari cruiser, Admiral Akbar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Confirmed. The Executor is disabled. Life signs minimal. The Death Star's defenses are in chaos, focused entirely on an internal breach. He turned to his crew. Whatever's happening in there, it's given us the opening we needed. All fighters, begin your attack run. Target the thermal exhaust port. This may be our only chance. The Slayer felt the shift in the station's defenses. Turbo lasers swiveling to face external threats, TIE fighters scrambling to intercept rebel bombers. The Death Star was under attack from two directions simultaneously, its command structure shattered, its defenders divided. He made a decision. The reactor would die, but not by his hand. Not when others were willing to sacrifice themselves for freedom. The rebels wanted their victory. He would give them the opening. The Slayer planted charges throughout the reactor chamber, not enough to detonate the core, but enough to disable safety systems, crack containment fields, create cascading failures. Then he began his exit, dashing back through corridors filled with panicking personnel, smashing through sealed bulkheads, racing toward the station's surface. Behind him, X-Wings and Y-Wings dove through the Death Star's trench, racing toward their target while TIE fighters pursued. Proton torpedoes launched, spiraling down the thermal exhaust port, plunging into the station's depths. The Slayer emerged onto the Death Star's surface as the first internal explosions began. He leaped into space, thrusters firing, carrying him away from the doomed station. Behind him, the Death Star's reactor went critical, not from his sabotage alone, but from the combined assault of rebel torpedoes and his strategic damage. The battle station died in a sphere of expanding fire, a second sun blooming in Mustafar's orbit. 1,000,000 Imperial souls extinguished in an instant. The Empire's ultimate weapon reduced to debris and memories. But the Doomslayer felt no triumph, no satisfaction. This wasn't about victory, it was about necessity. The Empire was a machine of suffering. The Sith were architects of corruption, and both reminded him too much of Hell's hierarchy. They needed to be torn down, dismantled, consumed until nothing remained but ashes and lessons learned. He drifted in space, watching the rebel fleet celebrate their impossible victory. They would claim this as their triumph, tell stories of brave pilots and desperate gambits. They would never know about the armored demon who'd torn through the Death Star's interior, who'd killed Vader and Tarkin, who'd sabotaged the systems that made their victory possible. Good. He didn't do this for gratitude, didn't do it for recognition. He did it because evil wearing authority's mask was still evil, and evil only understood one language. The Slayer's HUD displayed updated star charts pulled from captured Imperial databases. Korriban, Dromund Kaas, Exegol, Moraband. Dozens of worlds where the Sith had built their monuments, concentrated their darkness, corrupted the Force itself. His crusade had only begun. The Emperor still lived, hiding in his palace on Coruscant. The Inquisitors still hunted Force sensitives. The Empire still enslaved billions across 1,000 worlds. And beneath it all, the dark side festered like an infection that had been allowed to spread for too long. The Doomslayer set course for Coruscant, toward the Imperial Palace, toward the Emperor himself. The galaxy would learn what happened when you built an empire on suffering and corruption. Would learn that darkness, no matter how vast, how ancient, how powerful, could be consumed by something that existed outside its rules. The Force bound all living things. But the Slayer wasn't bound by the Force. He was bound only by rage, by purpose, by the absolute certainty that evil would be met with annihilation. And the galaxy had given him an all-you-can-eat buffet. Somewhere in the Force, across the stars, Force sensitives felt a disturbance. Not light defeating dark, not balance being restored. Something else entirely. A hunger that fed on corruption itself, growing stronger with each monument to darkness it destroyed. The Jedi had failed to stop the Sith. The rebels couldn't defeat the Empire alone. But something from beyond the stars had arrived with simple purpose. Consume the darkness until nothing remained. The Emperor sat on his throne in the Imperial Palace, feeling Vader's death through their bond, sensing the Death Star's destruction, knowing that his carefully constructed empire faced a threat unlike any before. Not rebellion, not Jedi. Something that grew stronger from the very power he wielded. He smiled, thin and predatory. Fascinating. A creature that eats darkness. We shall see what it does when it finally reaches the source. The stage was set for the final confrontation. The Doomslayer against the dark side incarnate. Rage against malevolence. Consumption against corruption. And across the galaxy, in hidden temples and forgotten tombs, ancient Sith spirits stirred, sensing a predator that hunted predators. For the first time in millennia, the darkness itself felt fear. The Slayer's crusade would end only when every monument to the dark side was rubble, every corrupted nexus was cleansed, every architect of suffering was ash. Whether that took months or years or decades didn't matter. He had eternity, and eternity was patient.